Hey guys, I'm Days Kipiego, and I was recently asked one of the toughest questions that I think I could ever answer. And that question was, if history had a Hall of Fame, who would be the person that you would pick? I know I've heard a lot of people say, oh man, 9/11, that changed history. It doesn't have to be people, it could be things or just events that happen. You know, people pick 9/11, MLK, Jackie Robinson, all those people and events changed America and even the world for the future. 9/11, like, it changed how people flew. It changed it. That's why we always have to go through the metal detectors and go through 2 hours of stuff just to get to our flight. And especially for Jackie Robinson, MLK, helping out the black community in the black sports, everything that has happened, it's because of them. They started it, and that has changed since when 1960s and before. And and I was thinking of an event that happened, and that event was the Great Depression. And the Great Depression, the USA was at an all-time low at that point, with 13 million people unemployed, and how we got out of that is all because of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I believe he got us out of that and helped us so that this will never happen again. And I'm gonna tell you why. Okay. Well, before I tell you why, you have to hear the background of why this happened. So, I mean, when he was younger, he was educated at home until he's 14. Went to Grattan's preparatory school and up in Mass. And he's lived there. And then he went to Harvard, which is not too far from his home, but that is where he found his lover Eleanor Roosevelt, and they were a power couple. And so that was actually when he, after college, he wanted to start his political career, but he's going to start that in the Senate in New York in the 1910s, and he successfully did get into the Senate, and but things did not go as he planned. It was in 1912 where he unfortunately got the typhoid fever, and he that was a tough time for him because he just got reselected for the Senate, but it set him back a little bit mentally. And the next year, actually 1913, he was the assistant secretary of the naval, and that was very important because especially when we just near later in 1914 we got our first world war, and he really took charge, helped out. He actually left to travel to Europe to tour naval bases and help out all around there, and that really opened up a lot of eyes to people and show what he can do. And so time went on, and unfortunately, in when he was 39 in 1921, he got polio, and that really took him back because once he got that, he couldn't even stand. So, having mentally having to leave your house, leave what you had, go to Georgia to try to get back what you had, even try to stand and walk, which he might not even be able to do, is just the setback and shows him the difference between other people and why he's a hero to America. And he didn't let them stop him. He kept trying to get better, swimming, do everything he can, and even help other polio patients because he went to Spring, Georgia, and actually opened up a place where they treat polio patients. So when that happened, he a year later he actually finally stood up, but he had to get it with braces. But that didn't stop him. He actually talked to Eleanor Roosevelt. He said, go back to New York, and I still want to be leading this country and helping this country. So Eleanor went to back to New York and kept his career alive and helped him. And that was when in 1928 he actually ran for governor of New York, and he won. He tried to get in the vice president, but he wasn't able to do that since the Democratic Party lost anyways, to Herbert Hoover. But as you know, now we come up to the biggest decision, and that was when the stock market crashed in 1929. That turned America around. People did not know what to do. People were dying. There was bread lines. People were just leaving their families, jumping out of houses, just whatever they could do to try to get rid of that. And nothing was working. So that just we Herbert Hoover, didn't have much to respond. And so in 1932, FDR said he was going to run, and he won. He he had a new deal. He actually broke tradition. When he was accepted as a nomination, he broke tradition, and he said, I pledge myself to the New Deal for the American people." That was the first time that he's actually someone president has broken tradition. So in 1933, it was terrible. USA was at all-time low with 13 million people unemployed. There was as over 25% of the population of America were unemployed. So he had a plan, the three R's and the New Deal. Three R's are relief, recover, and reform. Okay, that's the relief part. You have to aid the people. You have to provide jobs somehow. Recover. Okay, get America out of the Great Depression. Ultimate goal. And reform. Fix things that made the Great Depression so devastating. The first 100 days is exactly what FDR did. Those first 15 days, he's passed 15 laws to help the economy start recovering immediately. Those first 100 days are the eyes and what started just the legacy that he had. And that was just the start, okay? This included, the TVA, which was the Tennessee Valley Authority, which, just provide navigation, flood control, all the other stuff. That was the start of helping America recover. With that came the CCC, which is the Civilian Controversial Court. It gave, young men jobs because they had to somehow help other people, their family, because their fathers have left and try to do their own thing, because this was such a devastating time. So with that being said, he kept on adding acts. We got the SEC and the FDIC, which was this Security Exchange Commission and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. That right there is one of the two biggest acts, because that made sure that this was never going to happen again. Okay, it provided stability to the economy and the struggling bank system, because hundreds of banks and thousands of banks were closing at this time. They couldn't handle the amount of money that people were trying to take out, and they were done. So he gave a relief. Banks are going to be shut down, okay, and we are going to try to fix this problem. And it responsible for enforcing the federal security laws. So once that happened, the New Deal helped, but we still had a lot to go. So since this was helping, he thought he had a second deal, and that included one of the biggest acts of all, which was the WPA. That literally helped in every single way. It gave jobs in projects, whatever that could happen. It gave millions of people employment. Actually, we had 2.1 million monthly million employers working on projects like the Great Dam and everything that we could do, including one of our own McCoy Stadiums that is right here in Pawtucket. And so this really changed what we were able to do. And not only did it help so much, but we weren't at that point where we were totally out of the Great Depression. But the thing was that helped us massively was World War II that actually started. This is actually now he's in his, I think, fourth term, okay? This is the most that's ever happened. Everyone has just quit after two, especially starting with George Washington. He only took two, and then he said, I'm not going to do anymore. So people kind of just took that tradition and just stopped. But he kept on going. He was seen as an idol for America, helping us get out of this. He was loved by America. No one could stop him. He kept going, and he was the one who kept winning. And so obviously people loved him, and there's a reason why. So on December 8th of 1941 was when we got bombed by Japan. And we declared war on them right away. And Russia, or as I say, it was at the time Soviet Union, was actually allies with the U.S. and we were also allies with Great Britain. So we were trying to, take down um, everyone else like Germany, Italy, all Japan, all those countries that are coming after us, and so we that helped us massively because that gave millions of people jobs to work on tanks, planes, bullets. Everything helped. Many women even were getting jobs, and this was the time that we actually got out of the Great Depression. um, I know before this, one of the things that FDR was known for was trying to pack the Supreme Court, but that that actually took a turn, and um, they said it was unconstitutional, which that included the NRA and the and the AAA, which is the National Recovery Administration, and that's really just trying to eliminate and cut through on competition and like bringing labor and government together to create codes. But that really is just giving what happens if we have an evil person in as president, and that's just gonna take a turn. So that was kind of scary. So the Supreme Court says we're not gonna have that. That's unconstitutional. But all it all helped in 1944 was when he was elected his fourth term, and there was conferences with Joseph Stalin, that they all came together, which was the first Terrain conference that really plan attacks for so how we can defeat Germany and Italy, and that's what actually planned for D-Day, which was the most devastating and unfortunate day that America, the millions of thousands of people who died. It was just but in a way it worked, and that was our first kind of view of success. So now that we kind of had that, you know, we were on the verge of, okay, we're gonna actually win this. And it was in 1945 when we had the Yalta Conference that really was saying, okay, what are we gonna do with Germany and Italy? How are we going to make sure that this cannot happen again? He FDR already has that knowledge of how we're gonna make sure that we're not in the Great Depression again. So now we just have to make sure that how we can not have this another world war, and that right there, helping not just America but the world. And unfortunately, it was very sad that he came back. After he was traveling, he came back and he died on April 12th, 1945, and he was only 63, but he lived an amazing life, and he was succeeded in office by his Vice President Harry S. Truman. And he unfortunately he couldn't see the war end. He was a month away. A month later, the war actually ended. But just how important he was to the country, getting us out of those tough times, that was something that, that's just, it changed history for the best. And without him, and there's a reason why he was picked for 4 terms. That's the most any president has ever done. And they actually made an act in 1951 that says you can only have 2 terms, which, I mean, that would only couldn't happen if he wasn't picked for 4 terms. So everything that he has done for America, I say, it's the most important. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame of what he did, and I mean, even the people loved him, and I think everyone would agree. But that's just my take on it. You guys, whatever you guys think. I mean, there's not really a wrong answer, but that was just my take on it. And I'm Dave Scipiego, and thank you.